We designed 2 lessons in order to teach primary 4 students in Hong Kong to correctly pronounce initial consonant cluster with the end R. So our first lesson, the main objective is to let students understand the main plots of the story by reordering pictures and role play. And then students can predict meaning of unknown words with the aids of pictures and gestures. And then they will be able to read most part of the story after this lesson. So the introduction part, we actually teachers can paste the picture of keeper on the blackboard, and at the same time the teacher can describe the features of the giant, and she can actually draw a very big body shape on the blackboard. Yeah, and then she can continue describing the features of the giant and invite some students to come up and draw other body parts. And then teacher can show students the cover page of the story, the keeper and the giant. So which link to our story. Next part, that is storytelling. In this part, we divide this whole story into 3 parts, and students need to form a group of 4. And so each group will get a small whiteboard, and then teacher will play the soundtrack of each part and the story will be shown on the projector. After each part, students need to draw what they heard or saw on their whiteboard. And after this, teacher will invite some students to share. And then other groups need to draw what they don't have on their whiteboards. So in this stage, we want students to help them to understand the main contents of the story and to involve them in the story, but also give them the opportunity to think during the class. And in the post-reading activity part, we designed 2 activities. The first one is reorder. So in this task, students will listen to the soundtrack and reorder the pictures. This step, actually, we want to further check their understanding of the story. And then it's a role play. In this task, we want students to finish this task step by step. So for the first step, students need to reconstruct the dialogues by adding some information from the narration or based on their imagination. We think this step may be not very easy for them to finish, so we actually provide some scaffoldings. They can refer to the printed part of the story, and we also provide the sample dialogues for part 1, so they will know what they are supposed to do in this task. And also we will provide the word list for part 2 and 3. You can notice that some words in these 2 word lists actually are our target phonemic teaching focuses. So we want to expose students to our target words as many as possible in this stage. And then before they act out the part of the story, each student will get several evaluation forms. While watching the play, they need to tick whether they hear the following words in other groups' dialogues. So in this stage, we want to check whether they can understand their peers' pronunciation of these words, and also to expose target words to students to get them prepared for the next lesson. And after watching the play, they need to give feedback. Yeah, a teacher needs to demonstrate how to use this form. And after each play, teacher will check answers for the task 1 together with the students. And then the second lesson. The objectives of the second lesson is to identify mispronunciation of initial consonant clusters, the and, the. and also that student pronounce words with initial consonant cluster l and r. So we start the second lesson with a short review. Teacher will read the plot of the story in sentences with few mistakes, and then students have to spot the mistake and provide the correct answers. So for examples shown here. Here actually we want students to, we try to help them to recall the contents of the story and then to elicit some target words from students here. And then we want to further build students' phonemic awareness of initial consonant letter cluster. So in the first task here, we want students to circle out the words with initial consonant cluster l and r. And the teacher, of course, will do a demonstration how to finish this task. And in this step, we want to get them familiar with the forms of this cluster. Yeah, and then we will lead them to pronounce these words. For example, the word frightened, we will show them f and the r becomes fr, and the I becomes fry. Fry and t becomes fright. Fright and becomes frightened. Frightened and d becomes frightened. So they will know the features of the pronunciation features of this consonant cluster by reading together with the teacher. So after knowing the patterns and the pronunciation of this initial consonant cluster l and r, we will play 2 sets of recordings on the online spoken corpus. Student needs to listen to the recordings and decide whether the underlined, the red words, the red words are correctly or wrongly pronounced by the speakers. We use 2 corpus, a spoken corpus here. One is EDU-HK corpus, the English learners corpus of EDU-HK, and the another one is the speech essence archives. After the wrong one, of course, we will show them the native speaker recordings in the corpus to provide a correct demonstration. At the same time, teacher need to illustrate the importance of pronouncing consonant clusters correctly by giving some examples. For example, if a student wants to say plan, but he pronounces as pen, so the meaning are quite different for these 2 words. So yeah, it can impede students' communication. And we will decide again to check students' perception in this stage. Teacher will read 3 words each round, and the student listen and write down keepers 3 destinations in his HK journey. So for example, a teacher may read blank, then student need to write down Wan Tai Xing, and then she may read play, then students need to write down Ocean Park. Yeah, so they have to write down 3 locations in this activity. And then, of course, teacher can invite some students to read the words, but she should remind them to read it clearly and slowly. And then last activity is running dictation. It's the time for students to produce, to output, right? Teacher will print out target words or short sentences, and then still 4 students in a group. They need to take turns to remember the words and all sentences. Yeah, and then they need to come back to tell their other group members as many as possible. The other group members need to write down the sentences or words or sentences. And the winning group is the one who finishes in the least time with these mistakes. Yeah. In the first round, we suggest that teacher can just use some words, and in the second round, they can use short sentences. So by the end of the game, students are asked to read aloud the words and the sentences used in the game together. So that's all of our yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Karine and Sylvia. Again, one more very nice lesson plan and very impressive. And you used a storybook and then you listed how to teach L and R and consonant clusters. I think that's good. But my first question is, why do you choose this storybook?
First, we want to show others, even we don't choose the boy who cried more. Everyone chooses the boy who cried more. When we go to the schools and we teach pronunciation with covers and all of the boy who cried more.
Okay, that's good. That's a good point. But my feeling is because your focus is PLPR or consonant cluster and initial. My expectation is when I look at this story, I think storytelling or choosing a reader is a good idea. But I expect that in that storybook, there are a lot of consonant cluster in that, especially for the title. I think you will, give a very strong impression. If this title is not keeper, it's clipper, and the great giant, you have KL, great GR, and you can underline, and that is the focus. Because I feel that there is not very strong link between lesson 1 and lesson 2. Your lesson 1 is a storytelling, activity, and it's good. And second one is more phone focused, but I couldn't see the close link between these two. So, one suggestion is you can change another storybook and with consonant cluster at the title. The other thing, if you don't want to change too much, at least you need to introduce some lines in the textbook, in the storybook. You could find some PL, PR, DL, PR, some sounds and underline. I think that, and then when they do listening the story, and then they try to, your first activity is draw what they heard. I think that's a good idea. And then you resequence reorder the picture. I think it's also good. But after that, you go over again the story line, right? One line by tell the story. After they get the comprehension, but I think it's still good to, not only for listening, and then they could, for literacy purpose, you still need to read all the lines again, and at that time you can spell out all the consonant cluster. But you don't need to further explain too much, but you just try to have some warm up, and in the second lesson you can, more focus on form. But in the first lesson, while you read the story, you can tell, hey, can you underline some two consonants like PL, PR, and can you just put underline only? I think that's good enough. And then in the second lesson, and then in the first lesson, the role play part, you said that you want students to reconstruct the dialogue and end out. I'm not sure if, because I haven't really read the storyline, I'm not sure how complicated, how simple they are. I'm not sure if students can handle very well. It's better to provide one sample. Yeah, you have the sample. Or more controlled task. You need to just leave some blank for them to fill out. Don't ask them to write the whole sentence, whole lines. I think maybe a bit, especially during the limited time constraint, they may not be able to write the whole sentence and then act out.
Actually, we'll give them the part of the story, the text, that they can get some ideas.
Okay. But anyway, I think we need more language support. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult to really write and act and in front of the students immediately. That will be a bit difficult. And then in the second part, and then you look at the consonant cluster. I think this part is quite good. But I just have a feeling that you use very limited resources for the boy who cried wolf. According to this double lesson, you only provide 2 sentence recordings, right? Let them to point out the plant, PL, or plastic. Only 2 sentences from the focus and 1 sentence from the other archive. I wonder if it could be a bit more, since this focus-based lesson plan. Would it be possible to, one thing is, or fill in the blank, that's one way, or That you can circle because I think in the corpus there are different kinds. They should have some consonant cluster. Again, you can get a bit long. Actually, for P4 students in Hong Kong, I think this is fine. In terms of length, it's not that long. You can, for some part, you can use the identify the error, or you can ask them to fill in the blank, or do some minimal pair. You have won the perception game. For that part, I think I have two suggestions for that game. One is just maintain in this place, but you need to have one follow-up activity. Otherwise, I prefer you to put in the beginning of the beginning of the lesson 2. Before you identify, before you ask teachers to, you point out you ask teachers to record some mispronunciation, right?
No, in the evaluation form, actually the first time they need to hear some initial consonant clusters with the envelope appearing in the story.
Yeah. Okay. After that, I think perhaps you can have this kind of perception. Just like I think it's good to have perception task before production task. But if this part a little late to me. But the other way, if you want to keep in this place, I want you to have one follow-up production task. Because in this perception game, it's kind of I did use a minimal pair, and then you go to a certain place, right? Like the attractions in Hong Kong. Am I right? Right? Okay. So if you want to keep in this place, I think you need one follow-up production task. For example, can you share with? You just give them some keywords like plan, like play. Use some consonant class, ask them to tell a story, a trip to Huangdaxian, a trip to the destination you said, just not in the, I think in the previous 3 lesson plan, I think the weakest part is you didn't really relate your task to real life situation. You are still, in the practice stage, practice a lot of game, a lot of control practice. But I think the very important part is how students can make use of what they learn in their real life. They can, share with you what they did or what they have done. Last weekend they went to Huangdaxian, they went to some other attraction just now we mentioned. In the game, there are different places. I think they will be more closely linked to each other. And again, they need to use some keywords like PL, plan, play, PLAY, play. And then they need to write a very short journal or share with us their experience. I think for P4 students, I think they can make it for this. I remember in the textbook in P4, they have like very similar. They go to the very famous, like a Victoria Harbour peak or different places, and they need to share with them where do they go or where did they go last weekend or last vacation. Of things. So I think it will be closely linked to the local textbook. Yeah. Okay, but I think it's still a very, very nice lesson plan. Okay, so